This video I want to speak about overcoming the fear of fighting. In my experience and in my opinion, I feel that it's best to learn to overcome that fear at an early age. The earlier that you could get over that fear, the more skillful that you will be later on in life, and the more that you're going to be able to see the art in it and see that it's just a very aggressive kind of dance or game that doesn't necessarily have to be risky. I liken it to swimming. I myself didn't learn how to swim until way later in life because I simply just didn't have access to a pool and I didn't have the opportunity to practice. So it was very unfortunate that I didn't learn how to swim until like way later, 20s, 30s, to really feel comfortable with it. Now that I have access to a pool, it's not a problem at all for me. And it's not about age at that moment. You know, there's adults, 20-year-olds, 30 years old, 40, 50, and older that don't know how to swim. So you throw them in the deep end of the water, they could essentially drown and die. But if you have even a 10-year-old, 8-year-old, and they've practiced how to swim, you throw them in the deep end, they're not going to die because they know how to swim, or they at least know how to hold their breath so then they're not in trouble when they're underwater. So at that moment, it just shows that experience and skills is not just necessarily always about age. There's a lot of things that young people can do that old people can't do. There's a lot of things that old people can do that young people can't do. It just depends on the person. Now, it's always going to be better for a human being to learn how to swim, or at least learn how to survive in the water. The earlier the better. So you'd rather have a person know how to swim at age 10 than age 40. So when we bring it back to fighting, you'd rather have somebody who knows how to defend themselves and to remain calm in that potentially dangerous situation at an early age, at the age of 10, 12, 15. So then by the time that they turn adult, 18, 20, 30, or older, it's not a big deal to them. Like to engage in a sparring match or an actual fight. Like they can handle it with ease and comfort. Just like somebody who's comfortable swimming, you throw them in the water, there's nothing to fear, there's nothing to be worried about. If anything, they find joy in it. They want to jump in the water. They can't wait to swim because it just comes so natural to them and they see the benefits of it. You know, it's exercise, it cools your body off down, and it's fun. But if somebody doesn't know how to swim, it's not fun for them. So when it comes back to fighting, if you don't know how to spar and a fight ends up occurring, then it's not fun. You know, you're in fear, you're breathing heavy, and you don't know how to breathe right, you don't know how to conserve your energy, your emotions are everywhere, you might be very fearful or very angry, you might start crying, all these things happen. And in a way, just like it could be very embarrassing for an adult to not know how to swim, it can be very embarrassing for an adult to not know how to fight or how to defend themselves or to make a situation where it's not that big of a deal, too big of a deal. You know, I feel that everybody should know how to survive a fight, just as everybody should know how to survive in the water. Now, to take it to extreme realms where you're like really, really good at swimming, Olympic level swimming, that's a different type of training. You know, it's very focused, and it's not just about surviving, it's about like speed and making sure that you're swimming the most efficient as possible and that you are taking it to a competitive level in that realm. Now, when it comes to fighting, it's not that everybody needs to be world-class fighters, but the fact that you know how to defend yourself and you feel comfortable in that situation, you're not freaking out, and you're not making it more a bigger deal than it really is, that's important. And it's better to learn that early on, because the more practice that you do, the more time that you practice. When you start off at the age of 10 or even younger, the age of 6, the age of 4, and you're constantly engaging in these sparring matches to help make the situation less fearful, make you more comfortable in blocking, in dodging, in evading, in moving, in countering. Then if you keep practicing it from the age of 6 all the way up to the age of 16, you have 10 years to work on that. The fear ends up disappearing over time. You start feeling comfortable with it. It's not anything that is a big deal anymore. Sparring is just not that different than jumping rope, not that different than swimming, in biking, in running, in lifting weights. You have experience in it. Through time, through practice, the fear has disappeared. Same thing back to the swimming. And another thing is, you don't even have to teach a person how to swim. They eventually learn how to do it on their own. Now, you might have to, if you want to teach them how to get to the Olympic level, that's another story. But to teach them how to survive in the water, just put them in the water. They eventually figure it out. Same thing with fighting and sparring. Just keep putting them in the situation over and over in the sparring situation, and they eventually learn through time. A lot of martial arts training is not verbal, it's just physical. You know, a lot of times, you know, these arts, they come from the East, and these people that are truly from the East, from China, from Hong Kong, they speak in Cantonese, speak in Chinese, and then if they're trying to teach an American that doesn't speak that language, there's nothing verbal that's being taught. It's all physical. He does, you follow. He kicks, you kick. He punches, you punch. He moves, you move. Martial arts, the way to teach it is a non-verbal way of teaching. It's like leading by example rather than leading through or attempting to lead through lecture. And it's just something that happens over time. So you put a kid in the water, let him get comfortable with the water. Through time, eventually he's going to learn how to swim. You put a kid into the sparring situation, do it over and over again, eventually he's going to feel more comfortable, more confident. He's going to get more capable. The intellectual teachings, the one where there is a lot of speaking and words, it comes later on through life when they become adults. So for a child who's 5 years old, it's not going to do the child any good putting him into a philosophy class to sit there for 2 hours listening to a lecture. It's not going to do that 5-year-old any good. But in movement, you put a child in a dance class, in a martial arts class, or some class where there's movement, they naturally want to move. And they're going to learn through that movement. It's a non-verbal way of learning. So that is my feedback. You know, it's the best time for children to learn early to overcome the fear. So then, if a child can swim by the age of 5, and then the child lives until the age of 100, they have 95 years of living with no fear of the water, because they've learned to overcome that fear at the age of 5. But if a person doesn't learn to swim until the age of 50, now he's lived 50 years in the fear of water, when essentially there's nothing to be afraid of. You just have to learn about how to flow with the water, not go against the water, respect the water. So with sparring, with fighting, it's the same concept. There's a lot of people out there that's never gone through training in how to fight, how to defend themselves. They've never sparred ever in their lives. And they could be 40, 50 years old, and they lived through their whole life afraid of confrontation, afraid of sparring, afraid of fighting. They lived through their life for many years in fear. But if a child can learn early on, then they can live their life in confidence, without fear, because there's nothing to fear. Once you have learned the knack of it, when you've learned the art of it, as I stated, it's not that different than riding a bicycle, driving a car, jumping rope, swimming. It's just something that it's something that just becomes inbuilt into you through practice, or even playing a musical instrument. There's no need to fear the piano, or no need to fear sparring either, because you have learned how to properly move, how to block, how to dodge, duck, evade. You've learned how to not be in fear. You learn to control your emotions. So that's my feedback on that, on how to overcoming the fear of fighting.